Every morning in that house start with tension. Marie, you're too lazy, Miss P would shout. Marie, clean that again. Marie, why you always looking miserable? And poor Daniel, him loving daughter, yes, but him always tired, always quiet. Sometimes silence can wound deeper than shouting. One night, Marie finally cried out, Daddy, why you never defend me? And Daniel only said, just try keep peace, no Marie. Keep the peace. Sometimes people ask broken people for carry burden too heavy for them shoulder. So Marie pack one small bag before sunrise and decide say she'll go leave. No goodbye, no note, just pain walking down a lonely dark road. Kingston swallow her up fast, knives everywhere, stranger everywhere. And when you're young and hurting, kindness feel like rescue. That is when she meet Wilbert. Wilbert was smooth with him word, him closed it nice, him smiled it soft, and him voice sweet like sugarcane. Him stop him taxi beside her and ask, Miss Lady, you alright? And nobody asked Marie that in a long time. Him buy her some box food and him make her laugh. Tell her America full of opportunity and how he can help her for reach. Tell her say she deserve better and she feel wipe her tears. Ah boy, dangerous words when spoken to a lonely person. Wilbert said, you can't stay by my place, till you get on your foot. And Marie think God finally sent help. At first, everything did nice. Wilbert cook for her, check if she eat, buy little gift. I'll call her princess. But control does not enter wearing horns. No, it enters smiling. Slowly, but surely, Wilbert start to change. Why you need for call home? Them never care about you when me did find you on the road hungry, lonely, and a ball. Only me there for you. Come. And little by little, Marie's world got smaller. That is how he trapped her. No chains, just isolation. And one day Wilbert tell her, Marie, make me and you married now. It would have helped you reach America faster. Maria hesitated. But when you're hungry spirit, when your spirit is hungry, manipulation, that sound like love. So she and Wilbert married in a small courthouse in a the one frack where she run away from home with. No family, no joy, just papers and pressure. After that, Wilbert became somebody else completely, like night and day. Wilbert get cold every minute in my back after her. She can't go road. She can't finish school. After a while, Maria realized, say, she trapped. Nobody came looking. Nobody called. And one night, she sat by herself and whispered, Miss P never liked me, but she never tried sell me no fake dream neither. Eventually, Marie found the courage and decided that she was gonna run again. Not because she stopped being afraid, but because she realized fear was already living with her every day. And when Daniel finally saw his daughter again, he cried, living eye water. He held her tight and kept saying, Miss Sorry, Marie, Miss Sorry. Listen to me carefully. Every strict parent is not an enemy, and every sweet stranger is not a blessing. And every door that opened wide for you was not sent by the Creator. Sometimes the lesson is not learning who hate you. Sometimes the lesson is learning who is pretending to love you. The rain had just started falling when the knock came at the door. 3 slow knocks, heavy, patient. Maria froze, not because she recognized the sound, but because fear remembered before her mind did. Daniel looked up from his chair. Who's knocking so late? Her breath shortened. Miss P noticed first. The color drained from the girl's face so fast it frightened even her. Marie? She whispered carefully. Who that? Another knock, slower this time. Daniel walked towards the door. His daughter suddenly grabbed his arm so tightly it startled him. Daddy, please don't open it. And that was the moment Daniel understood something terrible had happened to his daughter while she was gone. The knocking stopped. Silence. Then a calm voice came through the screen door. Marie, me know you're in there. Wilbert. Miss P's face hardened instantly. Daniel opened the wooden door halfway, keeping the screen shut. A tall man stood outside in the rain, wearing a clean button shirt and a soft expression that didn't match the coldness in his eyes. Evening, sir, Wilbert said politely. Me just come to collect my wife. The entire house went silent. Her father blinked. Your what? Marie started crying immediately. Miss P turned slowly towards her. Marie, she said quietly, what you mean? Marie couldn't even lift her head. Wilbert sighed dramatically like he was the victim. She run off suddenly. Me been worried sick about her. Me so glad so me finally find you, Marie, me love. Daniel's jaw tightened. You married to my daughter? Maria whispered through her tears. I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to do it, Daddy. Wilbert quickly interrupted. We legally married, sir. Proper papers and everything. Miss P stepped forward then. For the first time since her daughter returned home, there was no anger in her voice, only fear. Do you know how old she is? Old enough, Wilbert answered smoothly. Daniel opened the screen door halfway wider. You need to leave. But Wilbert didn't move. Instead, he smiled, not warm anymore, sharp, controlled. Sir, with respect, she's my wife. If police get involved, them a go ask questions. Marie started shaking harder because that was how Wilbert trapped people. Not just fear, pressure, paperwork, confusion, embarrassment. Miss P looked at Marie carefully. Did him force you? She hesitated too long, and that hesitation broke her father's heart. Wilbur noticed it too. Marie, he said softly, almost sweet again, come home. We can fix this quietly. Quietly? The word sat ugly in the room because predators love silence. Daniel stepped fully outside now, rain soaking through his shirt. Listen to me carefully. Whatever paperwork you have, whatever game you are playing with my daughter, you're not leaving here with her tonight. Wilbur's face dropped. His smile disappeared quietly. For the first time, the mask slipped. You think you can protect her now? Daniel moved closer. Yes. Long silence. Rain poured between them. Then Wilbert laughed. Not happy. Dangerous. All right then. Me will return. And he walked back toward his taxi, slowly, like a man who believed the story wasn't finished yet. Inside the house, Marie collapsed, crying, I never wanted this. I never wanted this. I promise you. Daniel hugged her tightly while Miss P stood nearby, struggling with guilt, twisting through her chest. Because for the first time, she realized Marie didn't leave home because she hated them. She left because she felt alone, and loneliness had delivered her straight into the hands of Wilbert. Wilbur drove back to Kingston in silence. Rain beat against the windshield while old dancehall played low through the speakers, but his mind was louder than the music. Every few minutes, his jaw tightened again, thinking about Maria's father, Daniel, standing in that doorway, thinking about Marie crying in front of them, and how stupid he looked standing there. By the time he reached his apartment, the storm inside him had already exploded. The front door slammed so hard the frame shook. He grabbed a plate from the counter and hurled it against the wall. Ungrateful gal. Another cup smashed after everything me do for her. He paced the tiny apartment, breathing hard. The empty kitchen angered him most. No food I cook, no laundry full up, and no voice I say, "Yes, Wilbert, what you want?" Only silence, and silence made him feel rejected again. He muttered, "Everybody thinks that them better than me." A few hours later, he drove across Kingston to his uncle's house. When he arrived, music was playing loudly outside while people sat under a zinc awning, talking and laughing. His cousin Andre noticed him immediately. "Why, you look like you lose the war." Wilbert didn't laugh. "I need to talk to you." Andre followed him across the yard. "What happened now?" Wilbert took a swig of his drink. "Marie run back Gar family." Andre frowned slightly. "That little girl? She's my wife." "Wait, legally?" Wilbert glared at him. "Yes, legally." Andre scratched his head. "And you drive all the way go back go get her?" "Obviously." "But why you so work up?" Andre asked carefully. "People broke up every day. She embarrassed me in front of her family." Andre leaned against the wall quietly. Then he said the wrong thing. "Well, maybe she realized she don't want to end up like the white lady situation where you did it now." Wilbert's entire face darkened. "Watch your mouth, my youth." "Me just a say, I say, watch your mouth." Silence fell heavy between them. Everybody in the family knew about the situation. 2 years earlier, Wilbert had met a tourist from America while driving taxi in Montego Bay. A pretty blonde woman, always smiling, always promising things. She spent money on him, posting pictures online, calling him her Jamaican king, and whispering dreams and bringing him overseas. Wilbert believed every word. For months after she returned home, he bragged constantly about moving to America. Then one day, the call slowly slowed down, then stopped. Eventually, she married somebody else. Wilbert blocked her on every app before anybody could see how badly she had humiliated him. Andre rubbed the back of his neck awkwardly. "Me never mean nothing by it, you know." Wilbur pointed a finger directly in his face. "That story don't exist. You hear me? Never you mention that again." Andre nodded slowly. "All right, brethren, calm down now." Wilbur got up and began pacing. "But Marie, she different. How? She belong with me." "Belong? She cook, she clean, and she listen." Andre stared at him carefully now, not joking anymore. "And if she no want come back?" "Huh? She just confused because our family fill up our head with a whole bunch of foolishness." Andre studied his cousin's face for a long moment, then quietly asked, "Wilbert, you sure you miss Marie? Are you just here to say she leave you?" Wilbert immediately looked away, and somehow that answer told Andre everything that he needed to know. Wilbur sat alone in the dim apartment while the city noise drifted faintly through the open window. Cars, music, laughter somewhere far down the street. But inside the room there was only bitterness. A single photograph rested in his hand. The edges were bent from years of folding and unfolding. In the picture, he stood beside a smiling European American tourist on a beach in Montego Bay. Her sunburnt cheeks glowed pink, while his arm wrapped proudly around her waist. Behind them, the ocean looked endless. That picture was all he had left. Nobody in his family knew the truth or the full truth. Yes, they knew about the woman, knew she promised to help him get to America, knew he spent months bragging about him foreign life, but they never knew what happened the morning before she flew home. Wilbert remembered every detail: the dancing, the rum, her laughing against his chest while warm ocean breeze rolled across the beach party. That night, she promised, "Baby, soon you are go there with me." She was practicing her patois. And Wilbert believed her. But deep down, he was terrified. Terrified she would leave Jamaica and slowly forget about him like tourists always do. So just before sunrise, while the rest of the town still slept, he convinced her to prove how serious she was. They went quietly to a justice of the peace office. No family, no witness they knew, no celebration, just signatures, a rushed kiss, and papers. He became her husband before the plane wheels ever left Jamaican soil. For months after he waited, every phone call felt like hope. Every message from America felt like a step closer to escape. He imagined himself leaving Kingston forever. New clothes, new life, respect. Then the call slowed, excuses came, then silence. No visa, no ticket, no money, no return flight home. Eventually, he saw pictures online of her smiling beside another man in America. That was the day something inside him hardened. He blocked her everywhere before anybody could witness the humiliation, but the shame never left. Now, years later, pacing his apartment again, he realized why Maria's escape hurt him so badly. Not because he loved her, because losing her felt like losing America all over again. Another future slipping through his fingers, another person choosing to leave him behind. He stared at the old photograph before throwing it into the table angrily. Everybody always leaves. He paced faster, thinking, calculating. Marie still had no money, no independence, no confidence, and Wilbert knew exactly how fear worked. A slow smile crept across his face. She can't stay there forever. Then quieter, she a go come back. Wilbur didn't sleep much after that. Instead, he planned. He replayed every detail of Marie's life in his head like a map he needed to solve. Her home, her routine, her weakness, the cracks between her emotions. If she wouldn't come willingly before, then he would make, quote, willingly feel like the only option. A few days later, he returned to Marie's town. This time, he didn't arrive angry. He arrived calm, smiling, carrying a crate of fruits and vegetables in the back of his taxi. Mangoes, banana, carrot, everything arranged neatly like a peace offering. When Marie saw him standing at the gate, her entire body stiffened up. Daniel noticed immediately. Miss P noticed faster. Wilbert raised his hand slightly, gentle. "Me no come for trouble," he said softly. "Me come for talk." Daniel stayed close to Marie, but didn't step forward. Wilbert set the crate down carefully. "Look, I know how things end up last time," he said, "but me want to fix it." She didn't speak. Her silence was now her protection. He continued, his voice steady. "I bring food and money too." He reached into his pocket and pulled out an envelope. "I can pay for our school, you know. Make her finish, man. Make her build up our future." Miss P narrowed her eyes. Daniel stayed quiet, watching. Wilbert turned slightly towards Marie. "And I promise, me would never treat you bad again." A pause. Carefully chosen words. "Me did stress, man. I hurt, you know. But me trust me, me can change if you just give me one more chance, Marie. One more chance." Then he lowered his voice, almost tender. "Marie, we're married, you know. That means something, you know. We just can't dash it away for this, you know." Marie flinched at the word married because to her it no longer sounded like love. It sounded like ownership. Wilbert stepped back a little, softened his expression even more. "Me not ask for much. Just come talk to me, man. One away. No pressure, no nice. Just peace." And for a moment, he looked almost believable. Almost. And inside the house, things were not peaceful either. After Wilbert left, Miss P's behavior changed, but only briefly. At first, she tried. Less shouting, less anger, even awkward apologies she didn't fully know how to say. But it didn't last. Soon, the old habits returned, just quieter now, sharper, more controlled. When Daniel was home, she kept her voice calm, careful, measured. But when he left the room or when he went to work, her tone shifted. You think man like that just a go leave you alone? She whispered one afternoon while Marie passed in the kitchen. Miss P didn't stop. No other man now go want you after this, she added softly, like it was a fact, not an insult. Another day, while Danny was outside, she leaned near Marie again. You see, you run go marry stranger. No look how your life turn out. The words weren't loud anymore. They were worse. They followed her like thoughts she couldn't shut off, and slowly something dangerous started forming inside her. Not trust, not love, exhaustion, confusion, and the feeling of being trapped between two places that both hurt in different ways. Wilbert's calm promise of change began to sound less like manipulation in her tired mind and more like escape from the pressure closing in at home. Still no safety, still no happiness, but it could relieve her from the pain, or so she thought. And in that fragile place, her husband knew exactly where to position himself, waiting patiently for doubt to do what force never could. Mm, poor Daniel. Imagine say girl go run off with taxi man at Kingston. Hmm. Marie should have known the moment she stepped through the church gates. People stopped talking too quickly. Eyes followed her for too long. Even the older woman in the front with the flowers near the entrance went strangely quiet the minute she stepped in. Still, she kept walking towards choir practice, pretending not to notice. Inside the church hall, the whispers grew worse, small, sharp, impossible to escape. She kept her eyes lowered as she sat down, her hands wringing in her lap. When she eventually decided to open her choir book, nobody sat beside her. Nobody smiled. Nobody spoke. Only glances, whispers, judgment crawling across the room like ants. Then she realized something is wrong. They all knew. After practice ended, Maria stood outside near the church steps, trying to breathe through the humiliation. That was when she saw Paul, Pastor Clark's son, tall, quiet, clean cut, the same boy who used to walk her home after youth meetings, the same boy who secretly carried feelings for her for years. Everybody knew Paul loved Marie, except Marie herself. Or maybe parts of her always knew. He used to save her seat during church events, fix things for her father without being asked, looked at her long and hard when she sang. People whispered for years that one day Paul and Marie would marry. But now, when he saw her standing outside, his face hardened and kiss him teeth and wave her off when he saw her passing. Marie blinked in confusion. Paul! Him just keep moving. Paul, wait! Finally, him stopped, slowly turned around. His expression carried disappointment so deep it almost looked like disgust. Marie swallowed hard. What happened? Why is everybody acting so strange? Paul stared at her for a long moment before kissing his teeth. Again, you're really asking that, Marie? Her face burned. I don't understand. He laughed, then shook his head. Church know everything, Marie. Who tell them? Miss P. That hurt worse than she expected. Suddenly all the whispers made sense. The stares, the silence, the shame. She stepped back slightly like the answer thump her in her gut. He still looked at her in disgust. You run go marry some random man in a Kingston? And you expect people to act normal? Tears filled her eye. It wasn't like that. Then how was it? Her mouth opened, then closed again without a sound because she didn't even know anymore. He stared at her, sadly this time. No more anger, just broken-hearted. I used to pray for you, he admitted. That nearly broke her. I thought you were different. Marie's tears rolled faster. Paul! But he stepped away from her, as if touching her disappointment would stain him too. She turned around quickly, ashamed, tried to run. Then his voice cut through the churchyard behind her. Jezebel! She froze. The word stuck harder than a slap. Slowly, she turned back around. What? Paul looked at her, but not enough to take it back. He looked upset, but he meant it. You ruin your life, Marie. Round here, people never are gonna let you live this down. She stared at him. You think peace waiting for you? To hear this after this? That sentence stayed with her long after she walked home. Peace waiting for you here after this? By the time Marie reached the home, something inside her had finally collapsed, loudly, quietly, like a rope slowly snapping after carrying too much weight. And the worst part, Miss P acted innocent when she entered the home to confront her. I only asked church for prayer for you. But the small smile hiding underneath her words told Marie otherwise. That night, she cried silently in her bed, staring at the ceiling. The town suddenly felt too small, too cruel. Every roll had eyes watching her. Every corner carried whispers. And for the first time, Kingston no longer sounded frightening, just distant. A few days later, Wilbert returned again. This time he brought flowers, spoke softly, promised peace, promised a fresh start, promised nobody would judge her there. She listened quietly. Her father worked late that night, and Miss P moved around the kitchen, pretending not to be eavesdropping. Then finally, exhausted, beyond fighting anymore, she whispered the words Wilbert had been waiting for. "Me will come back." The morning Marie left again, the house felt strangely quiet. No yelling, no fighting. Even Miss P stayed silent while she folded her clothes into the same small suitcase she once packed in anger months ago. Only this time, she wasn't leaving with rebellion in her heart, just exhaustion. Daniel stood in the doorway watching his daughter pack. Every few minutes, he opened his mouth like he wanted to say something, then stopped himself. What could he say? Wilbert was still legally her husband, and Marie was no longer a child. That helplessness sat heavy on him. Finally, he spoke. "You're sure about this?" His daughter kept folding the clothes carefully to avoid looking at him. "No," she answered honestly. That hurt her father more than if she had lied. Outside, her husband waited beside the taxi, pretending to give them privacy while quietly checking his watch. Patient, confident, like a man collecting something that already belonged to him. Before leaving, Marie hugged her father tightly. Daniel held on to her longer than usual. "Call me," he whispered. She nodded. But both of them knew distance changes people, and fear silences many things. As the taxi pulled through town, she stared silently out the window, watching familiar places pass by. The bakery that she used to get patty after school, the schoolyard, the old football field, pieces of her childhood disappearing one by one. Then near Mrs. Patsy's shop, she saw Paul standing outside, helping stack drink crates. Her breath caught instantly. He looked up at the passing taxi. For one brief second, their eyes met. So much history sat inside that moment. Childhood games, youth choir, unspoken feelings, the version of herself she once thought she would become. Marie almost told Wilbert to stop the car, almost rolled down the window, almost said goodbye, but then the memory returned sharp as broken glass. Jezebel. Her throat tightened painfully. She looked away first, and the taxi kept driving. Back in Kingston, things started surprisingly well. Too well. Wilbert kept every promise he made. He enrolled Marie back into school just like he said he would, paid the fees on time, encouraged her to study, even bragged proudly to people about, quote, his wife becoming a businesswoman. Slowly, she began rebuilding pieces of herself she thought were gone forever. She decided to pursue a real estate license and started training. For the first time in a long time, she felt something close to independence. One of Wilbert's regular taxi clients owned a small real estate office and agreed to help Marie secure a beginner position after training. Wilbert acted supportive the entire time, driving her to classes, even in encouraging her to get her own driver's license. He asked about her exams. He brought home dinner when she studied late. Marie remained cautious, always cautious. Part of her waited every day for the mask to slip again. She expected shouting, control, anger, the old Wilbert, but weeks passed, then months. And somehow he never changed back. Sometimes she would wake up nervous for no reason at all, waiting for disaster that never came. It confused her, made her question herself. Maybe people really could change. Maybe pain changed him too. Maybe starting over was possible after all. One evening, she sat at the kitchen table reviewing property notes while Wilbert cooked some ackee and saltfish nearby. The apartment smelled like the garlic and thyme. Music played softly through the radio, ordinary, peaceful. Then suddenly, the sound froze both of them instantly. Wilbert slowly turned towards the door, and for the first time in months, Marie saw fear flash across his face. The knock came again, louder this time, sharp enough to rattle the thin apartment door. Marie looked up from the dinner plate, still sitting on the table, while Wilbert froze halfway through putting on his shoes. Sunday afternoons had become their quiet tradition. Cook dinner, play music, walk to the park afterwards before sunset, cool the city streets. Simple, peaceful, but the knock kept coming. Persistent, demanding. Maria frowned. "You're expecting somebody?" Wilbert quickly shook his head. Too quickly. "Nobody." Another knock slammed against the door, this time followed by a woman's voice, bright, bold, playful. "Open up, my Jamaican king." The color drained from William's face instantly. Maria noticed, and suddenly the room was no longer peaceful. He stood frozen for a half second too long before forcing a nervous laugh. Marie slowly sat down in her chair. "Who dat?" But Wilbert didn't answer. The knocking started again. "Wilbert, I know you're in there." His chest tightened because he knew that voice, knew it better than he wanted to admit. The woman who promised him America, the woman who disappeared, the woman who embarrassed him so badly he buried the entire story alive. For a brief moment, panic flashed across his face, real panic. He looked around the apartment as if searching for a way out before finally walking to the door. His wife watched carefully now, confused, suspicious. He unlocked the door slowly, and there she stood, like she stepped straight out of the past. A white sundress moved softly in the Kingston breeze, while her blonde hair sat tied back in a ponytail. Sunglasses rested on top of her head, and confidence rolled off her like perfume. She grinned the second she saw him. "Well, dang," she laughed. "You look like you've seen a ghost." Wilbert swallowed hard. Where do you?" Instead of answering, she pushed lightly past him into the apartment without waiting to be invited, like she belonged there. Maria stood up immediately. The woman glanced around casually before dropping herself on the couch. "Cute place," she said. Then finally her eyes landed on Marie. A pause. "Oh." The smile on her face shifted slightly, not jealousy, assessment. "Who's this?" Wilbert opened his mouth, closed it again. Maria arose from the couch, crossed her arms slowly, and suddenly Wilbert realized the two parts of his life he worked hardest to keep separated were now sitting in the same room, staring at each other. The room suddenly felt smaller, hotter, like the air itself had stopped moving. Marie sat quietly at the kitchen island, trying to process what she had just heard. "My Jamaican king?" Wilbur stood stiffly near the counter while the woman lunged comfortably across the couch like she owned the apartment already. For a while, nobody spoke. The silence became unbearable. Finally, he muttered sharply, "Where you want?" As she smiled, I want you, my husband. Then she leaned forward, opening her arms slightly, motioning for him to kiss her. Marie's brows furrowed deeply, confusion, shock, embarrassment. Everything tangled together inside her chest. He didn't move. My wife, he snapped suddenly. His voice exploded through the apartment. Please, you've been missing for over 2 years. He slammed his hands against the counter hard enough to shake the plates nearby. Marie flinched slightly. There he was, the old Wilbert, except this time his anger wasn't aimed at her. The woman simply removed her sunglasses calmly. Relax, my Jamaican king, she said casually. You were too impatient. Wilbert stared at her in disbelief. I was working on things, and I finally got your green card. Then I can take you home. Marie blinked slowly. Green card, Jamaican king, husband. The words spun around her mind painfully. She wanted to interrupt, wanted to ask questions, wanted to demand answers, but she couldn't even find her voice. He was so consumed by the woman standing in front of him, he almost forgot that she was there watching the two of them. Finally, he spoke again. Look, yes, we're married. Marie's heart dropped, hearing him admit it out loud. But not anymore, he continued quickly. Me move on. Me no want you again. The woman's eyebrows raised, not hurt, amused. Marie sat frozen, trying to understand how any of this was possible. How could Wilbert secretly marry another woman? How could he marry her if he was already married and had a wife? Had their whole relationship been built on lies from the beginning? The American woman slowly reached into her designer purse and pulled out a large envelope. Well, Wilbert, she said smoothly, that's sad to hear. She placed the envelope onto the table. Because I have your plane ticket right here. Wilbur's eyes dropped immediately towards it. And money, she added, for you to get the things you need together before we leave. The room went completely silent again. Then she smiled softly. You have 2 days to decide. She stood up from the couch. I'll be at the hotel up the road waiting for your call. Before leaving, she lowered her sunglasses slightly and looked towards Marie, sitting silently in the corner. One long look, not cruel, not kind either, just curious. Then she turned and walked confidently out the door. The apartment fell silent after it closed behind her. Wilbert remained standing motionless near the counter, staring at the envelope. Plane ticket? Money? America? The dream he buried years ago had suddenly walked back into his life wearing white sandals and red lipstick. And for the first time since Marie met him, Wilbert looked completely lost. A wall of silence stood between them. Marie sat frozen at the kitchen island while Wilbert stared towards the door the American woman had just walked out of. The apartment suddenly felt unfamiliar, like every piece of furniture now belonged to a lie. She finally let out a shallow breath. Wife? The word sounded weak the first time, confused, broken, then louder. Wife? Wilbert closed his eyes. She slowly stood up from the stool. This time, anger crept into her voice. Your wife? The third repetition cut deepest of all, because now there was no hiding left. His secret had spilled all over the floor, leaving behind a giant puddle of lies, deception, and shame. Marie stared at him, waiting for answers, real answers, but he couldn't face the mess he created. Not yet. Instead, he grabbed his keys off the counter suddenly and headed towards the door without saying a single word. Wilbert! But he was already gone. The taxi sped through Kingston streets recklessly until he finally pulled up outside his cousin Andre's house. Andre was halfway under an old Toyota fiddling with the oil pan when Wilbert stormed into the yard. Andre, me need to talk to your brethren. You would have never believed what just happened. Andre slid slowly from beneath the car, wiping grease across his hands. What? No. The American woman come back. He blinked. What? Yes. And she had demanded me go back to America with her. Andre stood fully now. Serious? She have my green card and plane ticket ready. His cousin's eyes lifted. And then Wilbert muttered the next part quietly. And Marie know me and are married. Silence. Andre frowned immediately. Wait, hold on. You married the American? Wilbert shot him a dirty look instantly. When? Years ago, man. We married before she left Jamaica. You serious right now? We never tell nobody. Andre brushed his dirty work pants slowly while trying to process everything. Why? Finally, Wilbert sighed heavily and sat on the hood of the car. The truth is, me learn to love Marie, you know. For real this time. Nah lie to you. Wilbert rubbed his face tiredly. But sending her back to school, paying for everything, taking care of her these last few years, it left me broke, me I tell you, my guy. Me broke, me have no savings, no money. Andre folded his arms, listening carefully now. And now that she know we never legally married, me afraid she a gonna leave me. Silence settled between them again. Then Wilbert looked up suddenly. But me have a plan. Andre looked nervous. What kind of plan? Wilbert leaned in. If me convince Marie for hold on, me can go foreign with the American woman. What? Andre's eyes widened. Just temporarily, man. Listen me now. Me can work, stack money, build me savings, and come back again. And when me come back, me can marry Marie for real this time, my guy. Andre's face was frozen. His mind struggled catching up with the madness his cousin was casually explaining. Wilbert, that sound too crazy for be true, man. It makes sense. It makes sense. No, it makes sense. Me can do it. Yes, man. Me I tell you, me can do it. Andre shook his head. No. So let me ask something. You plan for go America with the one wife, so you can come back, come marry the wife where you did pretend for marry before, but for real this time. Hearing it out loud made it actually sound insane, but Wilbert was desperate, so he clinged on to his foolish ideas. Andre stared at him carefully. Do Marie even know any of this? Wilbert didn't answer. That answer alone said no. Suddenly, Wilbert stormed back towards the taxi and yanked open the glove compartment. He returned holding the plane ticket and the envelope of cash. Without warning, he shoved them in Andre's face. You believe no? It sounds crazy no? Andre slowly lowered the ticket away from his face, then looked at his cousin with something close to pity, because for the first time, Andre realized Wilbert wasn't thinking with love anymore. He was drowning in fear of losing everything all over again. On the drive back home, Wilbur's frustration only deepened. As if the day had not already spiraled far enough out of control, one of his tires suddenly burst with a loud pop. The taxi jerked hard to one side of the road. Lord have mercy, he shouted, slamming the steering wheel. A flat tire, simple inconvenience, but after everything that happened that afternoon, it felt personal. He climbed out into the fading evening, heat kicking the tire angrily. Before realizing the truth, it was Sunday, and every mechanic shop nearby was closed. He checked his phone, but no answer. Cursing under his breath, he had no choice but to leave the taxi parked on the side of the road until morning. And somehow, things managed to get worse. Dark clouds rolled across the sky, while daylight disappeared quickly. Now he had to walk nearly 20 minutes just to reach the nearest taxi stand and catch a ride home himself. But somehow, between the long walk, the humid air, and the sound of his own footsteps, he finally began piecing a plan together. A way to explain things to Marie, a way to calm her down, a way to keep everything from collapsing completely. Meanwhile, back at the apartment, his wife paced the living room floor in disbelief. Her mind replayed the entire afternoon over and over again. The American is his wife? And him have a green card and a plane ticket? And to top it off, we are not legally married? Every truth hit harder the second time around. She stopped pacing and grabbed her phone tightly. She didn't have much friends in Kingston that she could trust with something like this. Truthfully, she barely had any at all. But right now, she desperately needed someone to talk to. someone who knew her before all of this. Against her better judgment, she decided to call Paul. The phone barely rang one time. Hello? Maria blinked softly, almost like Paul had been waiting for her call. Before she could even speak, he interrupted her. Marie, please let me explain. She stayed quiet, listening. Me know me owe you an apology for calling your names that day in front of the church. She closed her eyes in pain, remembering his words that stung. Jezebel. He sighed heavily on the other end. I was angry, and I admit the Bible said anger and sin not. Me sin against you, Marie. Marie, please forgive me. Me listen to gossip and me judge you before me hear the other side. Come on, we've been friends since primary school, Marie. The sentence alone nearly broke her composure. And despite everything, me would still like to consider you a friend. Since you're gone, there's not a day that has gone by when me not think about you, Marie. Trust me. Please forgive me. Tears gathered instantly in her eyes. She looked down at the floor, blinking rapidly. The most she could manage through the motion was, I forgive you, Paul. After hearing his confession, she almost forgot why she called. She about the American woman, about Wilbert's secret marriage, about the green card, but she couldn't tell him. Not yet. Then Paul suddenly realized something. Wait, me did cut you off the whole time. You called me. I didn't call you. What did you want to talk about? She hesitated, then shook her head, even though he couldn't see her. Never mind. We just needed to hear the voice of an old friend. And somehow, that was the truth. The two spent the next few minutes reminiscing quietly about old school days, church choir trips, and little moments back home. For the first time in weeks, she felt lighter. Then suddenly, jiggle, jiggle, keys rattled against the apartment door. Marie's stomach tightened instantly. Pa, listen up. I have to go. Me will call you soon, man. Yes, man. No worry, man. Me will call you soon. I have to go. All right, bye. After a brief goodbye, she hung up quickly as the apartment door opened. Wilbert stepped inside, looking exhausted. Sweat clung to his shirt from walking, but the second he saw Marie sitting there quietly waiting, his confidence disappeared again. Neither of them spoke at first. He struggled to make eye contact while slowly setting his keys on the table. Finally, he held out one shaky hand towards her and motioned silently for her to go towards the couch. She followed him carefully and sat down beside him, then waited for the explanation, waited for the truth, waited to see which version of Wilbert was about to speak next. He sat stiffly beside her on the couch, rubbing his hands together nervously. For once, he looked unsure of himself, not angry, not manipulative, just tired. The apartment stayed quiet except for the distant sound of traffic. Finally, he inhaled deeply. Marie, I'm sorry. She said nothing. Wilbert looked down at the floor. Should I tell you the truth? For a long time. Still, no response. She simply stared ahead while disgust slowly settled deeper into her chest. How could somebody lie for so long? How could somebody look me in my eye every day knowing that the entire relationship is a lie? Wilbert continued carefully. At first, me never love you. But after a while, when you did give me the second chance, me start to develop feelings. That hurt, even though part of her already suspected it. He looked at her finally. You know, things change. She kept her face expressionless. Inside, she just wanted him to stop circling the truth and get to the point. Wilbert leaned forward desperately. Me promise you, me woulda never, ever, ever lied to you again. The irony almost made her laugh. Instead, she stayed silent. Unfortunately, he mistook her silence for openness. Marie, listen up, I have a plan. There it was, the real reason for the conversation. He stood up and started pacing the floor. Listen up, me tired to live like this. Me tired to drive taxi my whole life, and me tired to struggle. Marie listened quietly. Me need money to build a better life for me and you right here so in Jamaica. Then came the part that sounded so insane, she almost thought she misunderstood him. He started pacing and turned towards her. Me can go America with the American woman. She blinked slowly. Work for a few months. He spoke faster now as the plan made more sense inside his own head. Once me get me citizenship and settle down, me divorce her. She stared at him in disbelief. Then he continued even more confidently. After that, me send for you. Silence. The entire plan sounded reckless, messy, unstable. She let him speak. What else was left to say? He crouched beside her now, trying to sound reassuring. Me just need little patience from you. He smiled nervously. Once me get me papers, me done with her. Marie, are you me choosing her? She slowly nodded once. Wilbert immediately relaxed, seeing it. He mistook her nodding for agreement, for support. But that wasn't what it was. She was nodding because for the first time since learning the truth, she felt free. Free knowing they were never truly married. Free knowing that maybe God Himself had given her a second chance to rethink every choice she made these past 2 years. Meanwhile, Wilbert continued building dreams aloud. Tomorrow, me go meet the American woman at the hotel. And then, me go convince her, say, me and you done. Marie lowered her eyes quietly. After that, me fly go to America. He reached for her hand carefully. Me promise you, said me I go keep in touch and call you every day. Marie allowed him to hold her, though her fingers stayed cold and still. Just continue to do your work with the real estate. Stay patient and wait for me send for you. That sentence echoed painfully inside her mind. Wait until me send for you. That morning he woke before daylight. Sleep barely touched him all night. Between the flat tire, Marie's silence, and the thought of America suddenly becoming real, his mind refused to rest. By 9 o'clock, he was already standing impatiently outside the mechanic shop, waiting for it to open. The damaged tire leaned against the wall beside him while mechanics slowly shuffled in, drinking coffee and making joke. Hurry up, no man, he muttered under his breath. After nearly 2 frustrating hours, the tire was finally repaired. He exhaled, paid them, jumped in the car, and made his way towards the American woman waiting at the hotel. The closer he got, the more uneasy he felt. Not excited, uneasy. The hotel pool area looked like something from a travel brochure. Bright blue water, palm trees swaying gently, and tourists laughing under umbrellas. And there she was, lounging beside the pool in another sundress with glasses, sipping a pina colada through a straw. The second she spotted him, her face lit up. There's my Jamaican king, she called, happily waving him over. Wilbert forced a smile and approached carefully. Inside, he had to keep reminding himself why he was doing this for the money, for a better future, for him and Marie. The American woman scooted over eagerly. I knew you'd come, she said, proudly patting the chair beside her. Wilbert sat stiffly next to her, trying hard to hide the disgust crawling beneath his skin. Years ago, he would have been thrilled sitting next to her. Now he thought of pretending to love her as exhausting. But he pushed the feeling down. Well, she smiled, no worries. We can catch up soon enough once I get you home. Home? The word sounds strange coming from her mouth. But just have a few loose ends to tie up first. She lowered her sunglasses. Meaning? Yeah, man, me come back tomorrow, man. Ready for go. Her smile widened instantly. 9:30 sharp, she said firmly before leaning back in her chair and returning to drinking her pina colada. The next morning arrived too quickly. Marie woke early to prepare for work. The apartment, cold, although outside was pretty hot. Quiet. She stood near the bedroom door, silently watching Wilbert pack his bags, shirts, papers, a few personal items, much like when she left home for Kingston. Now he too was leaving for the unknown. Oddly, she felt almost nothing. No dramatic heartbreak, no panic, only uncertainty. Part of her still couldn't believe any of this was real. Another part quietly wondered if Wilbert's ridiculous plan would even work. He zipped his bag and turned towards her. "Me soon send Phil." Marie forced a small, uncomfortable grin. He stepped closer, kissing her softly goodbye on her cheek. "Answer when me call." Then, with serious eyes, he added, "And save yourself for me. When me come back, me I go marry you properly this time." She said nothing. He never noticed. She never actually agreed to any of this. He was too busy convincing himself. Before leaving, he added one more thing. "And Andrea go come check upon you from time to time." She nodded quietly. Then, for what felt like the 100th time, he pointed toward her gently. "Be a good girl, all right?" The phrase made Marie's stomach twist slightly. Then he left. The ride to the airport with the American felt painfully awkward, silent, nothing like the fantasy he imagined years ago. Back then, he pictured excitement, luxury, romance, victory. Now, every forced conversation irritated him. Every laugh from her felt louder than necessary. And pretending to like her was exhausting. Halfway through the flight, he stared out the window, wondering if this entire plan was a terrible mistake. 3 hours later, the plane landed. He stepped out into a much colder breeze than he expected. He squinted, reading the airport sign carefully. Covington, Kentucky? His forehead wrinkled. Wait. He looked over at the American woman confused. Covington? Where were they? She laughed cheerfully while fixing her purse strap. "Kentucky, honey." Wilbert blinked hard. "I think you said you did live in New York." The woman burst into a loud hysterical laughter. "Ha! New York," she said, wiping tears from her eyes. "Oh, no, my dear." She hooked her arm around his. "Honey, I'm a Southern belle." The honeymoon phase lasted exactly 1 week, 7 days. That was all it took for Wilbur to realize America was not the dream he imagined from the front seat of his taxi back in Jamaica. The following Sunday morning, the American woman approached him with coffee in one hand and a folded sheet of paper in the other. "A few ground rules," she said casually. Wilbert frowned while taking the paper. The list was long, too long. No unnecessary phone calls, no sending money home without permission, no late nights, no attitudes, no island behavior, no communication with Marie. She especially has to go. I don't want drama while I'm fixing your papers. Every conversation somehow circled back to the same thread. If Wilbert wanted to stay, if he wanted citizenship, if he wanted his green card, then he had to obey. At first, he tolerated it. He told himself it was temporary, a small sacrifice for a bigger future. Then came the next surprise. The woman didn't live in the city, not even close. She lived deep in the Kentucky countryside on a farm, surrounded by dirt roads, endless fields, neighbors so far away they barely existed. He nearly lost his mind the first morning she woke him up before daylight. "It's time to get up. Farm chores won't do themselves." Farm what? But she was serious. Very serious. Every morning before daylight, Wilbert had to help feed and groom horses, large muddy animals he was terrified of at first. Then came the chickens, 47 of them. Every single day he collected eggs from the coop while fighting off pecking hens and the awful smell that clung to his clothes. And if that wasn't enough, there were fences to repair, wood to stack, half-finished projects scattered across the property waiting for him. The American woman called it pulling his weight. "This is how you pay me back for bringing you here," she'd remind him constantly. By midday, he was exhausted, completely exhausted. Driving taxi in Kingston suddenly felt luxurious compared to this. Back home, he complained about traffic. Now he missed traffic. He missed noise, missed reggae music blasting through the hot streets, missed jerk chicken smoke floating through the air, missed Jamaica. And even worse, though they were legally married, Wilbert wanted nothing romantically from this woman anymore, not even a conversation. The thought of kissing her felt forced, empty. He slept beside her like a stranger renting space in someone else's life. Weeks turned into months, months became a year, and slowly America consumed him. The food tasted strange, the people felt cold, the music carried no rhythm he recognized. Everything felt disconnected from who he used to be. By the time his 1 year anniversary in America arrived, he barely recognized the man that was staring back at him in the mirror. His face looked older, tired, weathered, and the loneliness inside him only deepened. He had no friends, no family, no Andre, no Marie. Sometimes late at night, he would sit outside the farmhouse, staring into the darkness, wondering what Marie was doing back home, if she still waited, if she hated him, if she moved on. But the American woman never let him forget reality. During arguments, she loved reminding him, "You can barely afford a ticket back home to Jamaica." And she was right. 2 years passed before William finally managed to save almost enough money for a flight home, almost, but never comfortably. Then one evening, everything exploded. The argument started over something small, mud tracked through the kitchen. But years of bitterness finally erupted all at once. "You're ungrateful!" "Ungrateful?" William snapped back. "You bring me here for ton slave." "Oh, please. Without me, you'll still be driving that raggedy taxi back in Kingston." Something inside him finally broke. Years of frustration, humiliation, regret all crashed together. "Madonna," the woman laughed coldly. "You ain't got nowhere to go." But this time, he didn't care. He stormed out the farmhouse, leaving behind the chores, the unfinished dreams, and the life he once begged for. No suitcase, no plan, no money, just anger and exhaustion carrying him forward into the dark Kentucky night. And as he walked aimlessly down the empty road, one terrifying thought finally closed behind him. After everything he had done, did he still have a place in Marie's life anymore? At first, Marie waited faithfully for Wilbert to call. A few weeks became months. Months slowly stretched into years, but no calls ever came. No letters, no money, nothing. Andre stopped by every now and then to check on her, just like Wilbert promised he would, but even he admitted he hadn't heard from his cousin either. At some point, she stopped expecting the phone to ring. And strangely enough, life began getting better, much better. Her real estate career started taking off. First, she sold one house, then another. Now she was finalizing contracts for a third property and earning enough commission to change her life. With her savings, she decided to leave the small apartment Wilbert left behind and move into her own place, her own furniture, her own keys, her own peace. Slowly, the young girl who once ran away from home searching for rescue discovered herself for the very first time. Her coworkers encouraged her to enjoy life a little bit. At first, she resisted. Then eventually, she agreed to small outings, dinner after work, movies on the weekends, social gatherings, and little by little, Marie started laughing again, dressing differently, speaking more confidently, away from Miss P's constant criticism, away from Wilbur's lies and manipulation. Marie was finally blossoming into her own person. And for the first time in years, her future no longer felt trapped. Every so often, she still called her father Daniel to check on him. So when she moved into her new home, she invited him to the housewarming gathering. She didn't know how to tell him not to bring Miss P, so she left the decision up to him. The day of the gathering, she opened the front door and immediately felt relief seeing her father standing there alone. "No, Miss P?" she asked carefully. He sighed. "She's not feeling too good lately. Didn't want to make the trip." Marie nodded slowly. Truthfully, she was grateful. The second Daniel stepped fully inside the house, Marie suddenly became emotional. Tears filled her eyes before she could stop them. Seeing her father standing in her home brought back years of memories all at once. After all, she was his only daughter. He hugged her tightly. "Look, Panyo," he whispered proudly, looking around the house. After some time talking and eating, curiosity finally got the better of him. Marie had never fully explained the Wilbert situation to anyone. Naturally, people wondered. Daniel leaned in his chair carefully. So, Wendy, who, Wilbert? He nodded. In Ghana, America, over 2 years now. America? Come to find out, he did already marry to some American woman before me, and him even meet. Her father's eyes widened immediately. One day, she pop up and tell him his green card came true. Wait there, hold on. You mean for tell me say Wilbert was already married when he meet you? Yep, Marie answered matter-of-factly. Daniel blinked several times trying to process. So that mean you and him never really married? No, Daddy. Silence settled over the room. Daniel rubbed his forehead. So, why you take so long to tell me this? Marie looked down at her hands. I wanted to give him a chance to come back like him promised, she admitted quietly. Then she sighed. But it's been 2 years. So what you gonna do now? She leaned back in her chair, thinking carefully before answering. I've been thinking long and hard about it. I haven't heard one word from him from since he left. She looked around her new house quietly. I think it's time for me to move on. Daniel remained silent, listening. I'm in a better place. I can't keep putting my life on hold, especially not for Wilbert. A slow smile spread across her father's face, not because of the pain she endured, but because for the first time in years, his daughter finally sounded free. Well, daughter, me dead with you, and me proud of you. Don't waste time with that man anymore. He lie and him deceive you too much already. It is time for you to move on. Then, with a small grin, he added, Speaking of moving on, Marie narrowed her eyes suspiciously. You know who asks for you every time I see them?